Welcome to Building Better Worlds, where we celebrate voices from around the world that are helping to forge a shared and abundant Web3 future. I'm your host, Vivi. Our guest today is a crypto OG and a builder in the Web3 space. Now let's welcome Aaron Ting, partner of Octopus Network of Web3 infrastructure. Hi, Aaron. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Vivi. Thanks for having me and giving me the opportunity to share.
Definitely. Now, we are good friends, and I know a lot about you and Octopus, but for the viewers and listeners out there who don't know about you yet, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and Octopus Network? For example, like what is it and how is it innovative?
Oh, yes, definitely, Vivi. Well, I started mining myself 9 years ago as a hobby, and at that time I was in the oil and gas industry. But since then, I've been lucky enough to be involved in co-founding a blockchain association in Malaysia, and also working for various types of projects in the space, including a privacy coin, a wallet, exchange, a derivative exchange as well as other non-DeFi applications. So Octopus is really interesting because when Lewis approached me about a year ago, he shared with me the idea that they can support Substrate, which is a very popular, it's a blockchain development framework that's invented by Polkadot. But he has a very innovative idea on how to actually use this technology. And of course, there's the other wonderful technology for communication between blockchains called IBC, or inter-blockchain communication, invented by Cosmos. So I found it extremely fascinating, and I was immediately convinced, and I'm very glad that now I'm part of the project.
Now let's zoom out a little bit. Since we are on this topic of Web3, I would like to ask you, what is your idea of Web3, and also how is that making our world a better place?
Well, that's a very interesting question. If you look back in the last 10 years, I think that we've been quite preoccupied with the blockchain technology itself. So we've been talking about, for example, consensus, block times, and the very different variants of and also applications. But from today onwards, or this year onwards, I would say that we are entering into a Web3 era. Now, the Web3 word has been coined by Dr. Gavin Wood in 2014, and Louis Liu, our founder at Octopus Network, has been talking about this and researching this topic for at least the last 2 years. So what does Web3 mean? It can mean a lot of things, but essentially we can see signs that Web3 will probably be even bigger trend than the blockchain era itself, with companies such as Facebook rebranding, and many other top companies, top VCs, as well institutional funds arranging to flow support in terms of funds, and actively hiring for this, even in a so-called crypto winter that we're in right now.
Yeah, obviously we heard a lot of discussions about Web3, also like the big debates, and from Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey saying that there's no real Web3 is owned by the VCs and everything. I think the point being that there are not many real use cases and adoption in the Web3 space. And I know that Octopus is actually working in tackling these issues by supporting more applications while app chains as an important Web3 infrastructure. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it works, and why is that helping?
Oh, definitely, Vivi. In fact, I think it's good that we take a step back and really look at the entire picture of what's happening. What is actually happening is that Web3 in itself, as we mentioned before, is a trend, is a new era. And when you say that this is a new era of technological advancement, that will also mean that it will have the adoption stages. So right now, I think we're past the innovation stage because some of the infrastructure, such as Polkadot substrate and Cosmos IBC, or even Octopus network itself, has taken many years to actually realize. Now, this is very typical of infrastructure projects, so it is not very surprising. Now, in terms of the stage that we're in, I believe we're in the early adoption stage. Now, when we're in the early adoption stage, you're going to see a lot more experimentation going on. There will be people, a lot of people, especially from Web 2, just coming into Web 3 and trying to basically understand the application. Now, it is not perfect at the moment, because obviously, a major part of Web3 is decentralization. So now we have concepts such as DAO, which people are experimenting with. But I believe it will take some time, perhaps a year or two, or perhaps 2 or 3 years before people finally get it. And that's when we'll see a major boom in this, Web3 trend. And I believe it's a trend that is, in fact, gonna transform society and also governmental structures, and also many different industries. End of the day, there are many definitions to Web3. Some people like to define it simply as the ability to own a piece of the internet, or own the piece of the internet of value, where you can essentially control your own data, and the monetization would flow back to you. But what I like to say about Web3 is that Web3, will enable, a lot of new innovation, which is highly required, especially at this time, where we can see that there's a heightened geopolitical instability. We have an issue where the monetary easing has gone perhaps too far in some people's opinion, and there is a lot of problems, not only in the financial world, but that has uh, had a chain effect, on the rest of the world, So I think the solution is there. I think the solution is Web3, and I really hope that people will be able to utilize it. There's certain areas that we're especially excited about. For example, play to earn is an area that Octopus Network is highly focused on, simply because play to earn has shown that it's been able to give back to people who contribute, right? And this is what it is essentially. Right now in the Web 2.0, all of us are contributing data. We basically live, depending on which part of the world you are and what you do, as much as 70 to 80% of our waking hour, just interacting with the internet, putting our data out there. But what we're getting back is just a very small fraction, and even then, that only applies to major influencers on Facebook with millions of followers. So this is not exactly fair, and I think that now we're going to see a drastic change. Just as recently as this morning, I saw a video by Nas Daily, which is a very famous influencer, and in Dubai, a couple of days prior, they had a 3-day conference for influencers, or so-called content creators, because obviously, now they're disseminating their content not only on YouTube but also on various other platforms. And Nas Daily just proudly claimed that, look, I bought $500,000 worth of Bitcoin. This is why I think it is interesting. I think it's definitely going to set off a major trend where influencers are just going to get it, and the public will eventually get this idea, and soon it'll be mainstream. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really a great point. From Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, when not the people would own our data and then enjoy the benefits of what the internet has to offer, right? Giving the rights and benefits back to the communities, back to the people, versus just owned by several big companies and big platforms. And so I want to come back a little bit to to Octopus, as you mentioned, like you've focused on the substrate, and how is it helping applications build the app chains in a cost-effective way? I know that in the likes of Polkadot or Cosmos and everything, like building a blockchain for an app costs like millions of dollars at least. So how is it? What's the case with Octopus, and how is it make it more cost-effective?
Oh, that's a really good question, Vivi. I would like to say that first off, the blockchain space has always been very pro open source. And what does open source mean for the general public? It just means that you review a source code to the world, and anyone can take your code and make improvements on it. And as long as they give the right attribution to the owner of the code, then they can use the code and basically improve on it. So this is a very fast moving space where everyone is just, in the spirit of sharing, in the spirit of innovation, just sharing everything out. Now, there were several bottlenecks for the adoption of Web3. It is absolutely clear that even if you look at the current landscape where there are, many layer ones that's, or even layer twos that's, being created, a lot of them actually have a issue with bandwidth. So, for example, a very popular Ethereum compatible chain, which is very popular with GameFi, has experienced congestion consistently over the last 2 months. And I know this because I personally operate one of the gaming guilds. And we have seen downtimes, and it's very clear, that the only way to really solve it, especially in a day at this point in time where we're in, we're launching a blockchain on substrate, for example, which in fact no one really needs to know what substrate or Cosmos SDK is. All they need to know is that when you want to have your own blockchain today, you can have it in a matter of days, right? If you just want a simple deployment on a testnet. And so that's how easy it is to have your own blockchain. And not only that, the communication between blockchains has always been a very big issue. If you look back just a month ago, there's been an $80 million hack, $250 million hack. And why is that? Well, it's very simple. It's because when it comes to designing a bridge, you have to understand to a very deep level the two layers that you're connecting to. But not only that, there's many design choices involved. So what that means is that every single bridge is almost like a custom bridge, and that actually presents a big issue because the way the internet works is that we have a single standard through which we follow, and everyone is able to connect as long as you support the standard. So in this world, we believe that IBC, which is invented by Cosmos, which we have our team has a very special relationship with, because the Octopus team is the team that actually built the IBC pallet for substrate, which basically just means that we are the team that is responsible to connect the two large multi-chain networks together. So these are, I believe, the building blocks of the Web3. And if everyone can have their own blockchain in a matter of days or weeks, then that's when we're really going to see Web3 scale. Because Web3 is not only about the current participants. We have to look a little bit further. What does it mean when Web3 is finally widely adopted? Well, it would also mean that very mainstream companies would also be involved in the space, and they perhaps are a centralized entity, but they may also support or try to kickstart a decentralized portion of a product or a decentralized project to engage the community. Because, for example, you have seen Sandbox, for example, which is a metaverse, and we'll come to that later on. But Sandbox have seen many major companies taking land, right, in this virtual world. Now, do I think that these companies are going to be satisfied buying a virtual land on someone else's platform? I don't think so. Simply because if you look at their brand for the issue of let's say brand protection and an issue of, from an angle of like capability. These are billion-dollar companies, or or a company that's worth like $100 billion. So obviously they have, a lot of resource to be able to build this out. What I see happening is that they're, putting their toes, and just in the water and just trying to feel the temperature of the pool, before they jump in. But definitely, I think that's what Web3 will look like, and that's why there are certain things within Web3. So, for example, some of the valuation for crypto projects, which it's quite a controversial topic, but some of the valuations are absolutely mind-boggling. And why is that? I don't think that everyone is irrational and everyone is necessarily a speculative investor. From what I see here in Dubai, they are very serious venture capital, and some of these venture capital are supported. They're funds of funds. They're coming from billion-dollar funds. So obviously, when you see this level of institution coming in and making funds available to gain exposure to this space, they see something much more than just what is currently visible.
Yeah, I think definitely there's huge potential in the Web3 space. It's a little bit like when Web 2.0 in the internet's early days, right? So there's a lot of money flooding in, and then from what I observed, like based on what you said, Octopus is really working as an important infrastructure to provide the applications with the tools, with the connection, like the IBC, the bridge, and everything, and then also it's connecting Web 2, the decentralized part, with the centralized part with decentralization, because we can't go from one stream to the other, but we need a kind of like a transition period, and we need bridges. And also, like, I know that Octopus is part of the Near ecosystem, and Near is actually one of the most user-friendly layer one protocol out there. So I think it really makes sense to really connect these two worlds, and so that Web3 could happen faster. And I would like to ask you, so what are your future goals for Octopus?
Well, yeah. Before we touch on the topic of the future goal of Octopus Network, I would like to again, touch on why Octopus Network is in fact not a blockchain. In fact, we are almost a multi-chain as a service. And why do we choose Near protocol? Near protocol obviously has a fantastic team, extremely highly qualified founders, but more than that, what they're focused on is actually, the one of the key bottlenecks of Web3, which is usability, right? So Near protocol, even though theoretically their scaling can go, is infinite, but the actual secret sauce is actually that they dedicate a lot of engineering resource towards making it easy to use. Again, that's one of the major bottlenecks of Web3. If we want Web3 to be adopted by the world, it needs to be as easy to use as Web2.
Yeah.
So for this, I don't think many people realize this, but if you do want to learn more about Near, it's as simple as trying to open their wallet, which is simple as opening an email. Now, as for the Octopus Network design, because we are multi-chain as a service, we do have a lot of advantages. Number one, we do not introduce any so-called obstacle or additional limitations or additional complexity to the system. But what we do is we're able to absorb many different frameworks that in the future we'll be able to launch on Near protocol. So at the moment, we do support substrate based chains, but we can also support Cosmos SDK or any new blockchain development framework that may come up in the future. So Octopus Network is future proof, and Octopus Network is a full value added ecosystem, meaning that we're not only providing the support in terms of technical assistance or some grants to develop your product, but we give you the entire knowledge. Because why? Because there's a huge gap, huge information asymmetry within our space. So you have a case where very few people actually have a lot of knowledge and they have access to fantastic networks, and and most people don't have this. So as part of our objective, and I would define our main objective of Octopus Network is actually, to help Web3 scale. And how do we do that? Is by removing the bottlenecks. So we are removing the bottlenecks when it comes to information asymmetry. We have a wonderful program with not only substrate developer training, but we also have a great program, accelerator program for entrepreneurs or developers to join. And through this program, we're giving away $1 million every year. And this is in collaboration with Huobi Accelerator, which is one of the largest exchange in the world. Not only that, for every app chain that is launched, you can launch it relatively quickly in about 8 weeks with a collateral of around $2 million, which is extremely low if you compare with Polkadot, for example, that may require hundreds of millions of dollars. And not only that, we also give an additional incentive in terms of our token. So that incentive, of course, varies due to token price, but roughly on average, it will be about $20 million a year. And that is just the incentive within Octopus Network, not including the incentive that's available for the near ecosystem, which numbers in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is something where we're extremely grateful for, because Near is also giving us great support to expand. Now, in terms of what the future may look like, I would say that the future, this is a question that I ask a lot of founders, right? So if you have an application, now you have two choices. Either you can deploy as a D app on a layer 1, and you share the bandwidth, and if this layer 1 or layer 2 is successful, then you may have an issue because gas fees might increase and you might have a drop in user experience, right? Versus now you can have your own blockchain. Okay, that's fine, but that's just one part of the puzzle, right? The other part of the puzzle is when it comes to cross-chain assets. So when you have cross-chain assets, and let's say you're using this wonderful protocol called IBC, you also need to be able to manage your assets. What do I mean by that? Well, it means that if you're crossing your asset from more than through more than 2 chains, so for example, from blockchain A to blockchain B1 to blockchain C, and you have and it's all open source, so you can't stop someone from crossing your asset to another chain. So if you have the same asset being crossed to blockchain B2 and being crossed to blockchain C, you essentially end up with two different, it's the same asset, but two different unique representation of your asset on chain 3. So that makes it very confusing for users. So what I see happening in the future is that each and every single blockchain will be able to establish a direct link to another blockchain. And when you do that, it's very manageable. Why? Because you can tell your community that, look, this asset on this blockchain B is the only representation of our asset. It is official, it is secure, and this is what I believe will happen. Right, and it makes sense. So, for example, GameFi, you can host your entire logic on your own blockchain, and you can connect to anywhere that has a source of liquidity. That's so wonderful. And why is that? Because now we have to think about 5 years or 10 years from now, what is it going to look like? Well, the potential is that we may have 1 million blockchains. So when you have 1 million blockchains, that's the only way that it can be structured where it's actually sustainable and it's highly scalable. So we hope Octopus Network will play a big part in bringing that.
Yeah, I think the future is definitely multi-chain, and then a lot of assets will be interoperable, like you said, right? So like being the GameFi or everything, I think Octopus is really serving a very unique value proposition to really make things happen for a lot of applications out there, like you said, facing all these options, and then Octopus really really serving this this whole package of infrastructure and ecosystem support and network effects to make them to help them bootstrap and really by doing this, by helping Web3 really happen faster. Now, on this topic, I would like to also pivot a little bit to Metaverse, which is also like a big part of Web3. So what is your vision for the future of Metaverse, and are you doing anything or planning anything for the Octopus ecosystem?
Yeah, so I believe that the metaverse is by definition a virtual world, and this was introduced famously by a novel called Snow Crash. Now, metaverses have existed in the Web2 world, and I believe that what we're really talking about is how would the metaverse exist as a part of Web3. So from the trends that we've seen, I can tell you that I've spoken to a lot of projects over the past week, and roughly about a very sizable 1/3 of the projects are actually looking at metaverse. They may be traditional companies, they may be crypto companies, but so many people are looking towards this direction. So I believe right now, the thing with metaverse is that there are open source codes available. So that's the reason why you see so many projects just coming up with, hey, I can do a metaverse. That's not an issue. But I think that metaverses are, the popularity of metaverse has a lot to do with the current situation of the pandemic, where people cannot leave their homes and for a very long time. But recently, I think there's a reverse in this particular trend. So I think that metaverse will, of course, continue as a trend, but perhaps the hype would die down, and all of that also has to do with the actual deliverables. So with so many people saying that they can build a metaverse, obviously, there will be a few metaverse that is either already very well established or actually, very innovative and make it easy for people to use. But they're not necessarily using so-called Web3 technology, right, to create, let's say, some business innovation or economic innovation within the ecosystem. So I think that metaverse. The other thing I noted about metaverse is that it's very event driven. So, for example, unless I have to report for work inside the metaverse, or there's a big event, for example, such as a big concert, but by no means, right, these are not like just probably just two very small examples of what can be done with the metaverse, but it's very event driven. And I think that metaverses will be interesting for some brands, especially very big brands. There may be a few organic metaverses that are successful, but overall by itself, I see an explosion of custom metaverses. But these metaverses, may experience a period where the world is reopening, and it might be sort of pushed to the background. And also, for example, I've been playing games for a long time, and I can tell you that, for example, if you buy a PS5 and you start your PS5 off, immediately you're in a metaverse, you're in a Sony metaverse. So that's the other question, right?
I think the definition of metaverse, definitely a lot of people, depending on whether you're from the traditional world or you're crypto and whatsoever, but I think it's basically like you said, right? It came from this Snow Crash, this novel, and then it means a virtual world. But then if we just look at it as a virtual world, what's the difference between now and Web 2.0, right? Like the online games, the online concert. Now we have blockchain actually. So I think there's a really like this topic we can talk for hours. But because of the time limit, I'm just gonna bring you back to the topic of ESG, like the environment and social responsibility. Now, I know that you're in charge of marketing and communities for Octopus. You're basically really an expert in community building. So from a marketing perspective, do you think, for example, like gamification can be used to create more engagement in addressing social and environmental issues?
Absolutely. I think that's it's a very, very great question, because this I believe has not been asked in many of the talks that I've been engaged in, but it's a problem that has been on my mind quite recently. The reason why is because if you look at the climate problem, for example, I think many years ago, Al Gore, brought attention to the sustainability of the current
Yeah.
trajectory we're on, and basically the solution that was, accepted was this idea of a carbon credit. Now, carbon credit is actually quite complex because I had an opportunity to speak to the Ministry of Natural Resource in Malaysia for one of the projects, and I do realize that not every country has a carbon credit. Some
Mm.
of them have
Mm.
some sort of incentivization program where it's more based on results, right? And that's a result versus the expected urbanization. And if you manage to keep certain areas, then you get some sort of incentive for that. So that for me counts as a form of gamification. So I think it already exists, now, so the concept is not new, but can we actually use crypto in this space? I
Yeah.
definitely think it can, right? So for this, I believe the United Nations has been, it's been quite a number of years since I heard that they do have teams. I'm not sure whether it's directly affiliated or working under the banner, but they have been experimenting with this. And yeah, I think that we can go so much more beyond just carbon credit, which is an environmental issue. But
Yeah.
we can also, try to solve some of the problem in the social sphere. Now, when it comes to social sphere, it's a lot more controversial, right? Because I believe, for example, the Chinese government has a sort of gamification, which I think that is a great idea, but it's actually quite controversial
Yeah.
on many different levels, just simply because every one of us live in different countries with different values, and perhaps a gamification system may work, or be well accepted in one country, and perhaps it's not, but certainly I hope that we'll be able to use crypto for this. On the topic of, while we're on topic of environment, I'd like to actually address that near protocol is a proof of stake system, and Octopus itself is a least proof of stake. But in fact, we don't add very much to the carbon emission of the world, simply because we are not a blockchain. So we are one of the most efficient designs that you can find. Of course, there are two camps when it comes to consensus and sort of proof of work, and the environmental impacts, versus proof of stake or any other form of consensus. But I'm gonna leave that topic aside and just say
Yeah.
that in the future, when we may have this very pioneering projects that enables us, to be in the space at all, like Bitcoin, right? But what Bitcoin is going to be, I believe, in the future in the Web3, is still they will still have a very significant role in the space, but they will not be everything. In fact, if Web3 really takes off, I believe that proof of stake or maybe some other new consensus will be popular, but certainly I think everyone in the space agrees that we will try to keep the environmental impact to the bare minimum.
Yeah, I think that crypto, like you said, it's definitely for gamification. It's definitely a really good way to incent as a motivation or incentive for people to get more engaged in solving some problems and everything. And obviously, we're going to save the discussion of proof of stake or proof of work in another time. I think that's super interesting as well, because there are a lot of accusations or criticism about crypto and blockchain, Bitcoin, for their gas emissions and energy consumption, right? So I think there's a lot of actions also from the crypto communities, like people, exactly like you said, Near and all the other protocols or projects like Octopus, like which are proof of stake, and like, so there are a lot of improvements in the space as well. We would also like to share with the world out there, but we're not going to details about this at this time. And also, you're very interesting. You come from, like you mentioned, the oil and gas industry, right? And then you're from Malaysia, now you're in Dubai. You're basically traveling around the world, and you've been doing a lot of things, and now you're in the Web3. So for listeners and viewers out there who would also like to be a part of Web3, be part of the revolution, how should they start? Do you have some advice for them?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so for everyone that wants to be involved in Web3, Web3 is very open community. So the best way to actually start is to do your research, and once you know a little bit more, and today there's a lot of resource available. You do not necessarily need to take a paid course or pay anyone for it. In fact, most of the information is available on on Medium, or even on YouTube. So the key here, I think, is to actually identify your interests, because there are a lot of people from different backgrounds that I've been very fortunate to meet thanks to crypto. Um, it wasn't the case when I was in oil and gas. We tend to just talk to our customers and suppliers, but there is a whole range of people that they have experience, they have insight, and they are very valuable to the Web3 revolution. So I would say that look around. You may not even find a project that is that you can relate to, but certainly do pick a project that is very open, very welcoming. I think Near community is very welcoming, and try to join them. So you can either join the Near ecosystem and the Octopus ecosystem through two means, basically. Of course, all of it starts from just doing some research, being active in the community channels such as Discord and Telegram. But beyond that, you can actually be part of an ambassador program. Now, there's some incentive given for the ambassador program, and it depends on your level of activity. But there's also the Octopus Guild and the Near Guild system, where if you have if you believe you have a problem to solve, for example, just perhaps in general, just making people aware of crypto and blockchain and Near protocol in your area, get a bunch of friends together, prepare a proposal. It doesn't have to be too long, but certainly make a plan and approach Near Guild, and they might just fund it. If you have time, do take a look at the page, because I believe they have more than 100 guilds, and Octopus also has a very aggressive plan to use this guild structure to engage people from all over the world, and on whatever topic. That's the interesting bit. So you have you can have more of a developer focused guild as well. You can have a more of a Metaverse guild or NFT guild or even a legal guild, to help
so many opportunities. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's exactly like you said. If as long as you have an open mind and you're willing to learn, there's so much information out there, and then the door is wide open. Like there's so many different ecosystems, and this space Web3 is still at its early stage, so meaning there's so much potential and so many opportunities. And thank you so much, Aaron, for sharing your insights, and best of luck with you and Octopus in your journey to make Web3 happen faster. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivi. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you for joining us, and please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Enjoy our community by clicking the link below. And you can find me at Vivi Lin SV, and let's build our Web3 future together.